welcome all of you who have already joined for today's session of the American Swiss Foundation, the Connect session on the apprenticeship model. What a pleasure to have you with us. Now, the Swiss apprenticeship model is a topic that has been on the radar of the American Swiss Foundation for quite some time. We've always had young leaders and experts that came and shared their know-how and wanted to learn and talk about the model itself. In 2016, the American Swiss Foundation decided to take it on in a structural way and actually started to plan for a roundtable on apprenticeship and entrepreneurship education, which then took place in April 2017 in Rüschlikon, which many of you will know. Since then, there have been many sessions on apprenticeships featured in most young leader conferences. And again, it is a topic that has been part of the overall American Swiss Foundation ecosystem, be it in the weekly newsletter or in other features, notably in that section on the future of work, which I'm sure you all are aware of. Now, absolutely delighted about today's session. We have some wonderful experts with us. I will get to them just now, but I wanted to first share a few insights just in terms of background, starting with, I guess, the question, that model has been around for such a long time. Well, how come it's actually made it still in today's time? Why is that model still up and running and actually so successful? Well, in my view, I see three big reasons for that. First of all, it is highly efficient. It is a model that, even though it is complex, it does work the way it is set up. All the stakeholders are coming together in a way that produce an outcome, and that outcome is an absolute key pillar to the Swiss society and the Swiss economy. You will hear more about that from Suzi, one of our super speakers just now. So it is highly efficient still today. Second, that model is highly adaptable. Yes, it's been around for many years, but in all of those years, the model was able to adapt to new professions that have emerged and to twist and tweak itself to the professions that have kept existing over the years. This is a clear secret. So even today, as the labor market is flooded and the world of jobs is dominated by all things technology, AI, digitization, where the apprenticeship model is adapting and is producing the learnings for the youngsters and the people who are apprentices with regards to those new requirements. So highly efficient, highly adaptable. And the third element is, well, believe it or not, it is highly cost effective. Now, I always hear how financing in training is one of the big stumble blocks. And it is, yes, training people costs a lot of money. We always say it is not a cost, it's an investment. Well, the Swiss apprenticeship model, we know, is expensive, but all the data is showing, and I saw the latest was from the year 2016, but there the number was about 5 billion. It cost the Swiss around 5 billion. And we'll hear about it. Who pays is, a mixture between the federal state, the cantons, and the economy, right? So 5 billion. But they know that they got the value of 5.6 billion out of the productivity that the apprentices created. So highly cost effective. And because of that, because it's highly efficient, because it's highly adaptable and highly cost effective, I'm convinced it's going to stick around for a long time. And I think that's one of the reasons why other countries are interested too. A few more elements. One is on the definition. And I know that, there's a lot of definitions floating around about what is an apprenticeship and what is an apprenticeship model. So I just wanted to share the following. There's the International Labour Organization, so the UN Organization for Work, for Employment, that set the first definition on apprenticeships back in 1939. Now that was adapted in 1962. And believe it or not, just last year, at the yearly gathering of all governments of the world and global employers and global trade unions was the latest agreement and recommendation on what the definition of apprenticeships is. So the ILO definition is that an apprenticeship should be understood as a form of education and training governed by an apprenticeship contract that enables an apprentice to acquire the skills required to pursue an occupation through structured training with remuneration or other financial compensation on the job and off the job, and leading to the attainment of a recognized qualification. I guess this all sounds familiar, but just a thought of interest because everybody asking themselves, what is an apprenticeship actually? What does it mean? What's the definition? Again, there are set definitions, and the latest, though, was just negotiated last year. So today, there's more and more countries that are looking at the model. At the European level, actually, a European Alliance for Apprenticeships was set up in 2016, with all European countries looking to adopt the model. The Swiss are involved supporting that. Outside of the EU, there's, again, a plethora of countries that have notably signed memorandums of understanding with Switzerland, because that is the gold standard. There are the Germans, of course, and the Austrians too, but we know the Swiss is the real one. So again, there's other countries that have signed agreements, China, for example, India, for example, and also the United States. Again, you will hear more about what that relationship between Switzerland and the United States from a structural, institutional level looks like just now. So let me now finally come to the introduction of today's great speakers. And I will start here with Suzi LeVine. Suzi, you have served on several boards. You're a lecturer at the University of Washington. You're an advisory board member of Open Classroom. You sit on other boards. You, of course, were the US ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein under President Obama, and you did back then pioneer everything about that apprenticeship partnership. I will leave it here with your introduction, but unbelievably wonderful for you to take the time and to share those insights specific to that Swiss-US relation and how you see that model is beneficial to the United States. Talking about the United States, we have with us Shauna and Melanie. You both represent organizations that have embraced the apprenticeship notion and concept. Shauna, you with Vectra Bank in Colorado. You're an absolute HR superstar, and you have been building apprenticeship programs in your organization. We're looking forward to hearing about that. And Melanie, you serve as the Director of External Strategies for Amazon's Inclusive Experiences and Technology business. And again, you have built brilliant programs with Amazon. Thank you to the two of you for being with us. Then we also have Ryan. Ryan, you're the Executive VP of CareerWise USA. I think no introduction needed there. What an amazing program that has really accelerated the reality for many apprentices across the United States. So actually, thank you on this occasion for everything you're doing. And then we have Larry with us. You're the president of Friends of Switzerland in the Boston area, and of course, a huge fan and a supporter of apprenticeships too. Dear friends, this is it from my side. I am so excited about this session, and I'm here with pleasure handing over to Suzi. Over to you, Suzi.
Thank you so much, Bettina. Bettina, you're such a leader in this space. You've been such a champion, not just in Switzerland, not just in the United States, but across the globe. Thank you for all that you do, because it really helps from an equity standpoint and really improving the well-being for individuals who need this access to dignity of work. Thank you. And Adecco has been quite an extraordinary leader in this space as well. So hi, I'm Suzi LeVine, and as Bettina shared, I served as our US ambassador. And before that, I had worked at Microsoft for a while looking at how do you use project-based learning to improve education. So when I saw the Swiss model, I was blown away because it's the ultimate delivery of 21st century skills and project-based learning, but with a paycheck. and a heck of a lot of dignity. So what I want to share with you is a little bit of unpacking of the Swiss model, why it's relevant in the United States, and where we are. But really, an extraordinary milestone just happened that speaks to the value, but also brings in a little Swissness. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the first ever United States Youth Apprenticeship Week. Colorado, career-wise, was there. In the US, it was here. Melanie, I don't know if you were at that celebration in New York, but there was a lot that happened all across the United States. And that would not have happened in May of 2024 had it not been for a visit by Dr. Biden in 2014 to Winterthur to a conference called the World Vocational Professional and Education Training Conference, and visiting Bühler Corporation as a part of that in Switzerland. Things take time. In Switzerland, that's one of the things where I know a lot of Swiss are like, things don't move quickly enough. I'm like, but they're deliberate. This is a perfect example. 10 years from initiation and catalyst to really being able to eat the fruit off the tree. So there we go. I'm going to share my screen so you can see, and I'll step you through. I am able to share and take you quickly through the model itself and why it's valuable for us. Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, great. So in terms of the overview of the system, really quickly, Switzerland shockingly has only 9 years of mandatory education. This always surprises Americans because we have 12 years, but we also have a lot of sports. The Swiss do sports in their communities, not in their school. They use school for actual learning. That was my little tweak on the American system. 9 years of mandatory education, and in that time, they have a culture of career, not as much a culture of college like we have. Career fairs start in the 7th grade, and companies have very robust systems to welcome and essentially recruit students. The 8th grade, they do schnuppen. This means sniffing to assess if that's interesting to them. So they'll spend a week in a particular employer. The 9th grade, they apply, and it can be more competitive than getting into some of the most elite institutions in the world. And in the 10th grade, they start. And the array of occupations is about 250 different occupations, from veterinary technician to healthcare to software development to mechanical engineering. And as you can see here, it leads to an extraordinary unemployment rate, 2.1%. This was as of in February, and 2% youth unemployment. To give you a gauge, in the United States, youth unemployment is usually 2 to 3 times what it is for adult unemployment. And that for communities of color is often also 2 to 3 times. In Switzerland, it is basically equal. One of the things that happened as a terrible export from the United States was this notion of college being required to succeed. And in the 90s, the Swiss felt that downward pressure on their system, with more and more people saying, wait, I don't want to go that channel. I want to go this other channel. I want to go to college instead of doing an apprenticeship. The Swiss retooled the system, per what Bettina was saying, in terms of agility of their systems and constantly reevaluating them. And they introduced permeability. You can finish your apprenticeship and go and get a higher education degree. You can finish your high school and go get an apprenticeship. And those credentials are seen across the system and recognized and handled beautifully. So there is no off-ramp. There is no tracking per se, as a lot of people have a fear. A lot of people think that the Swiss and the German models are the same. They're not. This is a key differentiator. So it has been a way for the Swiss to really keep people very engaged. And as you can see, a broad array of employers, a broad array of jobs. One of the things I want to highlight here is that in Switzerland, American employers use apprenticeship. And one of the efforts that we really took was to try to get them to bleed it back into their US systems. And now they have. Thank you, Amazon. Thank you, Vectra. Thank you, other companies who are involved. When we would meet a cheese making apprentice, that person wasn't like, I love cheese. I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to die with cheese under my fingernails. That wasn't their approach. Instead, it was about, how does it prepare you for life, not define you for life. Sure, your future may be in cheese, but your future, you're learning microbiology 1 or 2 days a week and doing your apprenticeship 3 to 4 days a week. The apprenticeships last for 3 to 4 years. They don't last for your whole life. And then you can also switch. Some of the examples here are individuals, so stigma doesn't exist around apprenticeship in Switzerland, or if it does, it's short-lived until people have the experience. And some of the highest level leaders in the country started as apprentices. Sergio Ermati, who's the CEO of UBS, which recently took over at Credit Suisse, started as an apprentice on the banks of Lake Lugano at age 15. You have Guy Parmelin, who's one of the members of the Federal Council, the equivalent of their federal council is like our executive branch, who rotates in as president. He started as a farming apprentice. Marcus Buchler, the CEO of their one aerospace firm, Pilatus, actually they have two, they have Ruag and Pilatus, and he started as a farming mechanic apprentice. Ursula Reynolds, who was the equivalent of their Secretary of Education many years ago when they retooled the system and is the world's global guru on apprenticeship, started as a commercial apprentice. So think of it like banking or desk jobs. The keys to this are that businesses are not are creators, not just consumers of talent. They're not waiting till the end of the college pipeline to slurp up the talent. They are investing in, as Bettina shared, $5 billion. Most recently was spent a percentage of the GDP. At times it's been as much as $7.5 billion. And they put it in human resources. And that's why it's exciting having Shauna and Melanie on this call, because they are not corporate social responsibility. It's not philanthropy. This is core recruitment and how do you bring in talent. And their shareholders understand it. I go to a lot of schools. In fact, last week I was just in New York and meeting some of the Amazon apprentices. And you go to these schools and they have all these college banners. Well, guess what? We need them to have company banners as well, so that students understand that it's not just going to college. That's the goal. The goal is to be able to have the dignity of work and have a quality of life. As Bettina referenced before, it's a shared investment in this in terms of the businesses funding about 60%, which is the apprenticeship costs in terms of their salaries, the mentorship costs, as well as developing the competencies and the curriculum. They come together in associations and they have what I call co-opetition. So Bettina and I may be an HR firm and I'm in vigorous competition with Adecco, but we work together to define what is the core competencies that the talent that we're hiring need, so that there's a common standard. That way, when an apprentice goes to Adecco, if they finish, they may or may not choose to stay with Adecco and they may come to the LeVine Corporation, but that's okay because I have apprentices who may go to the Adecco Corporation. And together we grow the pie instead of eating each other's pieces of pie. It's not a zero-sum game. The beautiful thing is that also the cantons are covering the schooling. I mentioned 1 or 2 days a week in relevant schooling, and that is about 30% of the cost. And the federal government manages quality and certification, and that's 10% of the costs. The businesses get a 7 to 10% ROI on their investment, which can be anywhere from 100 to 150,000 equivalent over that 3 to 4 year period. There's also a tremendous amount of loyalty. Think of it as sort of attachment theory, right? When somebody has their first job at a place, they have a particular loyalty there. I would argue I sort of had an apprenticeship at Microsoft where I rotated around different jobs. It always lives deep in my heart. So they have that as well. Now, in terms of the United States, we were very ripe for this opportunity. And yet at the same time, a lot of people have a lot of stigma associated. They think apprenticeship, they think carpenters, plumbers, welders, electricians, and we need more of them. And those are fantastic jobs. And those are fantastic apprenticeships. But at the same time, we have $1.7 trillion in college debt across 44 million borrowers. And only 40% of Americans actually graduate from a 4-year university degree. The other 60% are not knuckleheads. It's just that college first is not necessarily the right mode for them. In Washington State, we've changed the graduation assessments for high schools to not just judge principals on how many people go to college, but how many of those students go on to get a post-secondary credential. That way, it's not just about college. You can see the rate in terms of unemployment, and there's a huge demand for workers happening with new jobs coming online. Speaking of which, there's almost 9 million jobs going unfilled for lack of skills. There's also the silver tsunami hitting different industries. You can see this. So what did we do? Well, in 2014, like I said, we did this visit with Dr. Biden and had this aha moment of we need to collaborate together. So I was in the room where it happened when we had Johann Schneider-Ammann and Secretary of Labor Tom Perez, and the idea came up of, wait a minute, we should have an agreement to collaborate around this. So on your left, you see the signing of that agreement with Secretary Pritzker, Secretary Perez. We also had Secretary Duncan sign from Education. And the beautiful thing is how bipartisan this is. It was then another agreement of similar structure was signed in 2018 with the Trump administration and in 2021 with the Biden administration. We also, during my time there, were able to get 30 Swiss companies to agree to bring their apprenticeship programs to the United States that really catalyzed a lot of growth. And we've seen the fruits of all of that effort even now. Big cultural shifts that need to happen to really bring this to scale in the United States is, again, getting businesses to go from consumers to creators of talent, to move it from being a stigma to having status, to changing it. So Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania changed every one of the job descriptions, removing degrees and focusing on skills. Delta did this. IBM did this. Many employers are doing this in order to make sure that we're focusing on what is it that we need people to do instead of what tests they need to answer during college. Making sure that we have that permeability. We have systems challenges right now. Our higher education system is siloed from our apprenticeship system, from our K-12 system, and we need more permeability across those to recognize the credentials to make it better for individuals. Like I said, moving from programs and siloed programs to the system. And last but not least, to no longer give lip service to lifelong learning, but rather make it lifelong earning. So with that, I am now going to open it up to a Q&A. And if people could put their questions into the Q&A chat, that would be very helpful so that we can see, and or if people want to raise their hands, I think that may work. To see the hand raising, I'm not sure if I can see the hand raising. I'm going to ask Katie in terms of that function of seeing the hands raised.
Yes, I'll be able to see it and I can let you know, and they can speak as well.
Okay, great. I will kick off the Q&A with a question to Melanie and to Shauna. You are relatively new to deploying apprenticeship. What has been the most delightful moment thus far in your deployment of the Swiss model of apprenticeship in your organizations? Melanie, let me start with you.
Thank you. First, delighted to be here with everybody. Thank you for having me. One of the things that Amazon is committed to is not just hires into our own organization, but how we can expand the talent pipeline generally, right? It has implications for our communities, our cities, down the line that are almost incalculable. So with that in mind, the excitement, honestly, because as you all know, through our relationship with Career Rise, we have a youth apprenticeship program. And so you see the high school students coming in, getting exposed to opportunities, the light going off in the eyes, the investment in the creation of new ways of learning. And so it is both the technical learning, the soft skills learning, that professional development, the relationships they create with mentors and hiring managers. It is the confluence of all those things that seem like have an impact on their future trajectory. And so that's very exciting for us.
So happy to hear that, Melanie. Shauna, how about you?
Yeah, thank you again for having me as well. And definitely concur with a lot of the things that Melanie said. And so just to take my own spin on it, I know Melanie is in New York City. I'm in Denver, Colorado. And so, first and foremost, the talent pipeline, I would echo, in tandem with Melanie as far as, those hard to fill jobs. And that's been really exciting to see young talent come in and be able to get experience and know that they're on a trajectory to be able to earn higher paying jobs than what they would necessarily, be on track for. And in the Denver market, and I'm sure in New York City as well, primarily in the 25 and under age range, we have a real struggle with affordability in the community. And so if we can do our part to help overcome some of the obstacles where they can do meaningful work and in turn earn a significant wage that we know progresses into overall increase in lifetime earning is really exciting for us. We feel like we're doing our part. And then again, like Melanie said, just the ideas and the questions that the apprentices bring. I mean, a lot of us can't see the forest for the trees. We've been doing what we've been doing in our industry for a long time. And so as we come in and we think, you know, we have so much to offer them as far as teaching them about what it's like to work in a corporate environment, specifically working in finance, we're just constantly surprised by the questions and the energy that they bring and the things that they ask us. Why do you do that? Have you thought about doing it this way? And again, kind of back to that original point about getting them on a new trajectory, or one that maybe involved a lot of high school debt, just seeing them see themselves in that industry. I've got one apprentice right now that just never thought he would, you know, be in the specific department that he's in right now, and so excited and looking to further his skill set there. So that's really creates a lot of, as was mentioned earlier, dedication to the company, but it's also has its kind of radiating effect throughout the organization of what we're doing, and it seems to help with employee engagement across the board. So that's been really exciting as an HR professional, and anybody that has you know, any sort of vested interest in the trajectory of talent, employee engagement, and you know, building skill sets. It's just really exciting.
I love that point in terms of the unintended benefit that the mentors and those working around these young people are feeling energized and are probably learning from them just as much as they are passing along. That's great. I love that. We have a couple of questions coming in through the Q&A. I have, since what year approximately have apprenticeships been around in Switzerland, and is it covering all major industries? Technically, the guilds have been around for hundreds of years. And so, Bettina, in terms of the modern system, you mentioned a couple of points around that. Do you want to handle this question?
Thanks, Suzi, and great question indeed. Look, it's pretty much for, let's say, and I'm calculating now, over 150 years, right? So it's been around. I mean, the modern constitution of Switzerland dates back to 1848, and shortly after, we know that the apprenticeship model was around as well. That is a long time, and it's absolutely in all professions. So 70% of Swiss youth have an apprenticeship, go through an apprenticeship. The key is the work contract. That is at the beginning. And then there's this one type of dual education, which Suzi alluded to before. It's commerce or business. So basically, you may have companies that give the contract that don't have necessarily an apprenticeship dedicated to their space, but those kids will always be able to do an apprenticeship in business or commerce. So that is kind of the overarching one. About half of the apprentices do that business or commerce apprenticeship, which gives them then the insights into that employer and that industry and gets them started in the Swiss economy. And that's why it's covering all possible spaces and fields across the country.
I even remember meeting aerospace apprentices who were building the fairings for rockets at 16 years old. And I studied aerospace engineering, and for me, I was a little jealous of them, actually. The next question, actually, Ryan, I'm going to point to you, that came in from Anina Bossard. Such an interesting topic. Thank you for this. My question, assuming that companies have the largest interest in finding and developing loyal talent, are they doing enough to engage communities and schools at a local and regional level to create programs? Or should the push come from a more central government place? And what are governmental frameworks that would help these programs? I will add into that and intermediaries. Ryan?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Suzi. Thank you for having us on, and thank you to the ASF for featuring this important topic. I will say that critically, employers have to lead in this work. This must be a demand-driven system. That's what makes it so efficient and so adaptable as the world of work changes ever faster. And that said, it is critically important also that employers are connected to their local school systems, both from a curricular perspective, ensuring that the curriculum being taught in classrooms is relevant to what's needed in the workforce, as well as from that engagement perspective. And that can be really hard to do individual business by individual business, and that one-to-one relationship between a school and an employer, which is where the role of government and, to Suzi's point, intermediaries like CareerWise can be really valuable. We at CareerWise help coordinate the market and help businesses speak with a little bit more of a unified voice with schools by sectors and by occupations, so that there's a single feedback loop to what is being trained on or what should be trained on in the classroom. We also create this space for employers to come in and talk with young people, provide these career exploration activities on the front end, start to create that longer pipeline into your business and going deeper in the relationship with your own community. That becomes really helpful as the right fit of student interested in that industry comes into play, as well as making sure that they have the understanding of what industries are out there. So many young people only know what they've seen, and that might be quite limited. So creating this early exposure and this broad opportunity, as you mentioned in Switzerland, this kind of sniffing activity, creating those exploration opportunities early on is really important. Intermediaries can play a helpful role in that.
I'd add to that as well. Thank you very much, Ryan. When this has failed in the past, because there were initiatives under Clinton and under Bush, and when this is, and also locally, when it's failed in the past is when education or government builds it for business as opposed to with business. It's very, very different. And then in addition to that, you have to have this combination. When you look like in Washington State, look in Colorado, you look in New York, where it's succeeding is when you have business, when you have government, when you have education, when you have labor, when you have philanthropy all coming together to really fuel and fund this system. The next question I will push a little bit to Bettina. What have been the most effective strategies for engaging U.S. employers in apprenticeship programs? That's a little bit Ryan. And how can organizations like the American Swiss Foundation or the Swiss American Chamber leverage their transatlantic relationships to facilitate and enhance these efforts?
No, thanks for that one. Look, I mean, the key is doing exactly what we're doing, right? It's just to keep highlighting the positive aspects, be very concrete, of course. Suzi, you indicated how important it is to have a hyper multi-stakeholder approach and multi-partnership approach. What one needs to create is this sense of what should I say? I mean, the urgency is there, right? But it's just accountability, really, because it's not just the business community. It's also the government authorities in the United States that need to take it on. And this is what has happened. And now, of course, organizations like the American Swiss Foundation are, absolutely key in here, because we sit in this ecosystem and we are one of the conveners of all these different stakeholders. And that's why, I'm delighted when about 10 years ago, the American Swiss Foundation decided to have a structured approach about it and to really feature it notably as an agenda item in all the young leaders conferences every year, right? I think this is what needs to be done. We cannot take for granted that people know about it, first of all, and second of all, that they expect somebody else to act. No, it's each and every one of us who can contribute. And the Swiss Chamber, American Swiss Chamber of Commerce, has been just as active and effective as well. So I think it's this constant gathering the stakeholders and asking for accountability and really, educating and hopefully motivating, because every apprentice counts, every one of them. One aspect I often hear is the scalability. Doesn't matter, we're going to change lives and make a difference one apprentice by one. And if a company only has one or two apprentices, doesn't matter, still it's worth getting into it.
And there's a little bit of seeing is believing. And the nice thing is when you see in Switzerland is great, but now we can see more. And like I said, I had this great experience in New York visiting Amazon and then going and visiting school where there were apprentices for Accenture and others like that. So Ryan, did you want to weigh in?
I was simply going to add that point. Shauna, you gratefully hosted a bunch of HR professionals at your bank just the other week in partnership with SHRM, the Society of Human Resource. And Melanie, Amazon hosted a group of our board members and employers to show what this wonderful group of young people are working on. Some incredibly innovative things, security robots for your homes that these 16, 17, 18-year-olds are working on, which is incredible. And even Jamie Dimon last year hosted 200 people at JP Morgan Chase to showcase what their apprenticeships are all about, what their apprentices are doing at JP Morgan here in New York. So I think the more we can get employers to show other employers the value that they're getting out of this and bring that together, the better.
So we're going to do a final speed round. And this final speed round is if you each could wave your magic wand, your magic apprenticeship wand or wand made by apprentices, to instill one thing in everyone in the United States about apprenticeship. In one sentence or less, what would it be? Shauna, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I'm going to make this a run-on sentence because I want to speak to everybody on the call, but this doesn't start my sentence yet. There's really something in it for everybody. For the businesses, it's the talent pipeline and those hard to fill jobs and being able to fill them at a lower cost with the intermediary that you talked about. You know, we use CareerWise and them helping us source them has really reduced, our recruiting process. Parents and children, it's a solution to a lot of debt that maybe you're not prepared to incur. And it's a pathway to the higher wages, like I spoke about earlier, primarily in the 25 and under age rank, where we know that they can earn about $250,000 more in their lifetime. And then lastly, to the community and national leaders, just higher paying jobs, lowering the unemployment rate primarily, again, at 25 and under, less student loan debt. I mean, I'm sure I could read an article and go on and on and on. And, Suzi, you probably are better at that. But my one sentence is this: there is something for everybody.
I love that. Melanie, how about you?
One sentence is hard. I agree. And actually, I'm in HQ2 for Amazon, so in the DC area. And I think, one of the magic wand things that we have seen happen that I think has the potential to happen is being in community with other employers who are looking at what we're doing to model it inside their organization. So there is a ripple effect to the positive and amazing outcomes that come from these investments. And the other thing too is the span of the programming. So the time frame to be in program for like multiple years, right? Which is something that we have at Amazon. Being paid, the soft skills learning, and then the range of opportunities from the user experience to the software development to being in marketing and sales to, so the breadth of experiences that people can sign up for become really important, and it becomes a unique kind of carrot, I think, to hang out there for the young people that are participating. And then I know you said one thing, but I would say we also have an apprenticeship program for people that are just out there and that has been in existence since about 2016, called the Amazon Technical Apprenticeships. And so they're thinking about these opportunities for apprenticing at both the youth level, people that are maybe out seeking to get back into the workforce, coming out of the military. So they create a lot of different opportunities in a lot of different ways. I know that was more than you asked, so sorry.
Thank you. We're going to finish up with Ryan, and then Ryan's going to take over. Ryan.
Thank you, Suzi. And I would say the key point here is that there is no job out there that isn't better learned through a mix of theory and practice. Theory alone will never get you to be a stellar employee. The majority of what we know as good workers is what we learn on the job. So bringing that into the education system, bringing that into that younger age range, starting with that, is exactly to your opening point, Bettina, it is more efficient. And that's what we need as an economy. That's what we need for our businesses in this country. And it's what we need for our young people. I'll also say that this is not only an alternative to college. It is an alternative path through college. It is a way to provide meaning to college. And so I think we've got to really expand how we think about apprenticeship in this country. It has become far too much a focus of a last resort worker training program. And really, this should be your best bet. With that, we have an ask for everyone here. Engage. Don't just sit here and listen and say, oh, that was a nice idea. This is too important for this country to not actually do something about it. If you're an employer, do not think about your next hire without considering whether an apprenticeship is a good path for it. If you have a young person in your life, a child, a niece and nephew, ensure that they're thinking about their career and thinking about apprenticeship as a path for that. And you vote. Look at your legislators, look at your elected officials and tell them that you want something better for your community, you want something better for your business, you want something better for the people around you. And this is one of the surest ways to invest in our communities. When our students are also becoming taxpayers at the same time, that's better for everyone. We're creating good citizens, we're creating solid economies, we're creating an innovative and adaptive environment that's dynamic and can keep up with the fast-paced change that we have to keep up with as a country. This becomes a global imperative for us. With that, I believe there's a slide somewhere around here that has some contact information, some resources. There's a great organization called New America that puts out the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship. It has a lot of technical resources and guidance if you're curious of how to start an apprenticeship. We at CareerWise have a lot of resources and tools and are happy to help you if you're a business, if you're a school, if you're a community looking to get youth apprenticeship going in your community. And we're not the only ones doing this. There are hundreds of communities across the country that are all actively pursuing the expansion of youth apprenticeship. We're happy to connect you with one of them. We're happy to help you start one if it's not in your community yet. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that will be sent out following the presentation as well.
Well, 9:14, very impressive, great Swiss timing. Now, Larry, do you want to also have a final word in this in terms of representing FOSSI up in Boston?
Yes, indeed. Hello, everybody. Greetings. Suzi, thank you very much. And hello to all of you. I'm Larry Grob, and I'm a dual Swiss American. And it's safe to say that I wouldn't be here at all if it weren't for Swiss apprenticeships. So this really hits home for me. More about that in a moment. But first, I wanted to thank you all for watching. And I want to applaud today's ASF Connect team for a super informative and engaging discussion. So thanks to Suzi, LeVine, Bettina, Schaller, Ryan Gensler, Melanie, Harrington, Shauna, Hoekstra, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the ASF staff who make these programs happen. As you've hopefully learned today, it's nothing short of enlightening to hear and see about how the dual Swiss education system, with its robust focus on apprenticeships, can be a true inspiration for us here in the US. Conversations like this shed light on how it can inform our efforts and make a difference in real places in real time. We just need more of them. So, even if you are not among those who can engage the system as employers or evangelize as employees, remember, as Ryan suggested, we all have a voice, and our legislators will appreciate hearing from us on this especially timely and compelling issue, especially now. Your calls do matter. As a new ASF board member and past president of the Friends of Switzerland, today's event is also kind of a reunion for me with Suzi, LeVine. Our organization recognized the ambassador with its Julius Adams Stratton Prize for Intercultural Achievement back in 2018, celebrating her work and with her husband Eric as passionate advocates of the Swiss educational system back here in the United States following their tour of duty in Switzerland. And it's a real pleasure to see her so passionately active still in the apprenticeships arena. As I noted earlier, today's program connects me with my own past as well, for I truly would not be here today were it not for my own father's Swiss apprenticeship. As a teenager in Basel, a benevolent boss asked him one day if he would like to continue his apprentice work in America. He accepted the offer, and he proceeded to serve a 45-plus-year career at the company's New Jersey headquarters, rising through the ranks in the process. So needless to say, I am a true believer in the power of Swiss apprenticeships and what they can inspire us to achieve here at home. Let me close out with an ASF shout out to the Boston area where I happen to live. I encourage all of you to keep an eye out for future ASF in-person and virtual events coming down the pike, as we like to say up here in Beantown. So again, thank you all for your time. Have a great day and safe travels.
Thanks, everybody.